Hello, and welcome back to Shh, the Girls Are Racing. Today, we're going to be talking about round 3, which was Miami. Very, very exciting weekend. There was so much going on. I don't think I'll be able to cover it all just in this race review because we had the F1 Academy Netflix series premiere or preview. There was so much going on with that and so much promotion around that I really do want to talk about that. There were magazine covers dropping, and we got some F1 people talking about women in motorsport as well. So I think I want to cover that separately a bit later. I just want to focus on the races today. Race 2 was called off, but there is still stuff to talk about. The fact that they were flying around in the wet for quite some time. But yeah, we still definitely have a lot to cover in qualifying and race 1. But before I get into that, I do want to say that I think I have fixed this microphone. I might have just made it really loud, I don't know. But it looks like it's working. It said it was working last time. It came to my attention that it did, in fact, not work. But I just left it. I was like, it's fine. But I think it's working now. At least I hope it is, because otherwise that's a bit awkward. But nonetheless, firstly, as I said, microphone aside, basically Doriane in Mercedes brought a special livery, special suit, all this type of thing to Miami, and I thought it was so cool. Doriane's car was decked out, she had the suit, and she had a special helmet as well. I thought she looked so good, and I thought it was really cool that they were including her in all of that special livery promo and stuff, and that they wrapped her car. I was just like, yes, like, oh, the cohesion like across the team, it looked so brilliant. V-Carb with their literal epic pink Barbie livery, and I don't want to talk too much about F1, but they had an amazing opportunity to do Rafaela's car as well, and they didn't. So that was a bit disappointing that she was just in the regular sort of outfits. Maya Verg, she had the blue and white suit on, which I believe is the special suit. She had that on for the weekend, so they did some of it. And to be honest, Ferrari would be the exception. They brought a special livery, and I'm so glad she didn't have it. It wasn't nice. To be honest, her car just looked better as is. But yeah, same with Emma Felbermayr, just the regular car. I really wish those teams brought the liveries. I thought that would have been cool. But yeah, Rafaela in like a pink race suit, like, come on. The opportunity was missed, man. But yeah, it was really cool to see Doriane's car get like the full makeover. I thought that was inclusive, and it was nice. Something else I can also mention is the wildcard, Ava Dobson. She was really good. She unfortunately got the 3-place grid penalty, which did put her at the back, but she was actually pretty competitive, so that was really nice to see out of a wildcard. And the reason why I just want to mention her at the start is because they announced Morgan Stanley as like sort of like a new partner, or at the very least for this race. But it seemed like there will be some sort of ongoing relationship there with F1 Academy. And I don't know, I thought that was really cool because they're obviously like a huge financial services, investment banking, whatever company. The more money into F1 Academy, the better. The more opportunities these girls can have, and honestly, how can that even be a bad thing? So I thought that was really cool because it really like solidifies their position as they get more sort of like legitimate big sponsors. They already do have a group of amazing sponsors, but to get even more, like, I'm not complaining. Who's complaining? Not me. Sorry, I just also don't think I mentioned, hi, welcome. My name is Miranda. I'm just a fan, really invested in F1 Academy and women in motorsports, and I wanted to have a show that kind of talks about it, reviews the races, everything that happens on the track, off the track. So that's what this show is. Okay, so now on to qualifying. I thought that it was pretty good. The rain obviously caused some issues. So for anyone that didn't see, it's on YouTube, by the way. You can go watch it. You can watch all of F1 Academy stuff on YouTube, except for free practice. But basically, I want to say it was like the first 5 minutes or maybe 7 minutes, it didn't rain. So the girls that got out in and managed to do their laps in that amount of time, they really benefited from that. And I honestly didn't mind it because it meant that we saw Leah Block, P5, Aurelia Nobles, P6, like girls that you wouldn't normally see up there. Rafaela Ferreira as well, she was P7. That was really cool because they're normally, to be honest, Leah's had a really hard go of it in qualifying in all of the races so far. So this was really nice to see her up there at the start. The rest of the girls that went out slightly later, they were like fighting each other to get their lap done before the rain really hit, because we didn't know if the rain would go away, and it didn't end up going away in time. But it was like a race out there. Like watching some of the qualifying back, it's like Alba Lars and Maya Verg, they're like trying to get around the cars and go really fast. And I don't know, I thought it was pretty cool to see sort of like some action in qualifying, whereas you wouldn't normally. But yeah, because of the rain, a bunch of girls ended up back in the pits. A couple fitted their cars for wets, and they ended up doing some laps in the wet. None of them improved. So I'm just assuming it was some sort of like just getting some experience in wet weather in the rain. So can't fault them for that, to be honest, because if you've got the time and you got the tires, why not, right? So we got to see Campos at the top. Chloe Chambers took out pole, and Alicia Palmowski took out second. Those two are obviously very, very quick drivers. And I think Alicia, just as a rookie, is just killing it. Like, it's quite unbelievable, to be honest, just how well she's doing. But yeah, it was really nice to see Leah near the top, having a good qualifying. Yeah, that was just really nice. Doriane got third. Ella Lloyd was up in fifth. That was pretty goated of her, to be honest. My rookie goat. Alba Larsen, I think, was a shock one, because obviously Maya Verg in 10th was a huge shock as well. But Alba Larsen has been really strong, really consistent so far. So P12 was a bit surprising, but when you consider how much traffic there was in qualifying for those girls who went out slightly later, and we're talking minutes here, they went out slightly later, but when you consider the traffic, it kind of makes sense where they ended up. But it's still a shock, because Alba's been so consistent so far. And I should mention, she was actually one of the girls who fit wets onto her car, and went out for a couple of laps in qualifying. And there are a couple of concerning bits of footage of her laps where she was sort of like sliding around and kind of making mistakes, and also not handling the wet super well, not handling the rain super well. But it's definitely a reminder that she is still a rookie, she's still learning, and maybe she hasn't had that much experience in the wet. And, you know, she's only 16, and she's done like 3 months of single seater before she got to F1 Academy. So I don't fault her for that. But I think it's just a good reminder, given that she's been so good and so consistent lately, you almost expect her to be up there. But you have to remember, like, some of these girls, they're just so new to it that it makes sense that maybe they haven't learned in the wet yet. But yeah, so I think that was just like it brought me back down to earth from my Alba Larsen cloud. I was flying high, I was soaring on. Because she's also such an incredible rookie, and only 16. I say that all the time, but it's just so incredible. Even like on the track, she's incredible for 16, but then her business acumen, I just respect the hell out of it. And I'm so excited to see what she does. Something that I actually thought was really interesting is that Leah Block was another person who fit her car for wets and went out during qualifying. And she was actually setting fastest sectors. And I think that's really interesting. And a lot of people maybe would just be like, oh yeah, whatever. But Leah comes from a rallying background, and different conditions is sort of what I assume is like someone in that background sort of bread and butter, especially compared to just like a plain old single-seater background. Obviously rallying is in different like terrain and stuff, so not the same thing, and I'm not trying to say it's the same thing, but I think she clearly has a bit more of that experience in those sort of different conditions, whereas single-seater, you've got the very much just on the road, hopefully in the dry type of situation. So I thought that was something interesting to mention, because it was just in qualifying, but she was setting purple sectors on the wets, so she was killing it out there. There were a few near misses with a couple of girls sliding off here and there, but I think it was just being on the slicks, and when it started raining, like, that wasn't a particularly good combination. Oh my gosh, okay, so it's a bit darker now, because the video just stopped recording because my laptop ran out of storage. At least I was at the end of my sentence, I think, so it's okay in the end. But we were talking about qualifying and how the girls only got about 5 to 7 minutes of running before the rain came. Some of them boxed for wets, some of them just stayed in the pits. And yeah, Chambers got that pole, Doriane got in third, and that gave her a really good opportunity to come up through the field in the reverse grid race, which is obviously the first and only race that we did have in Miami for F1 Academy. Because obviously Chambers and Palmowski, they were pole and second respectively, but they would have to make it past Doriane, which they didn't end up doing. But we'll get to that in a moment. So in the end, there was 700ths between the top four that separated the top four from each other. And that was with 20 minutes of qualifying to go. And as we ended up seeing, that was the final result. So they didn't really get to push that much. We didn't see a super competitive quali, but I still thought in the end it was pretty entertaining, especially because we had the queen herself, Miss Abby Pulling, on comms. We had her for the whole weekend. She was commentating. She was on co-commentary, but hers was the better commentary in my opinion, and we'll get to that. But it was really cool to hear her insight, her takes. She's also friends with plenty of the drivers, so she was able to give us insight on what they were thinking going into the weekend and stuff like this. So it was really cool to hear her and all her opinions and stuff whilst the girls were qualifying and giving us that special driver insight that we don't always get from commentary. Another thing to mention before we get into the race, but it's kind of about the race, which is Emma Felbermayr once again came 8th, which put her in P1 for the reverse grid race. Now, honestly, I think that's so much pressure for Emma two rounds in a row to be in first place in the reverse grid race because she's qualified P8 both times. For this to be her first season out of karting, it is a lot of pressure. I do want to say she did so well in this race, especially compared to the one in Saudi Arabia and Jeddah. I thought she did so well, but it made me almost frustrated for her because she had all this pressure on her shoulders 2 rounds in a row. I would have liked to have seen her almost in somewhere in P5 and then be able to kind of work her way up instead of having to kind of be battling with the girls who are going to go on to win the championship when she's in her rookie year. But I'm sure from her perspective, it is excellent experience. It doesn't get much better than that in terms of gaining experience against some of those girls who are in those top positions. So she must take a lot out of it, and I bet she's growing a lot, especially compared to how she did in Jeddah to this one. I thought it was incredible in terms of battling those girls. But it's pretty tough to see that she gets all that pressure put on her shoulders like that because she's done 2 P8s in a row. But yeah, as I said, she must be really gaining a lot of experience out of that. For this to be her first season out of karting, it's pretty incredible in my opinion. So on to race 1. Alba Larsen, instead of P12, did end up starting from the pit lane, but she did really, really well in the race for starting in the pit lane. On the commentary, they didn't really expand on why she had started from the pit lane, but obviously it must have just been some sort of thing they needed to fix, so she couldn't go out on the starting grid. But yeah, she did really, really well in the race. But if we just want to start from the beginning, turn 1. On lap 1, that was crazy. Ella Lloyd went a bit hard on the brakes. I don't know if there was a mechanical issue there, but something happened. She clipped Rafaela Ferreira and whoosh, off she went. I thought it could be salvaged, just viewing it as I went, but from the camera on her car that they showed in the replay, yeah, she got some sort of piece of the car underneath the wheel and it was done and she got out. They cleared it up really quickly, so kudos to the marshals and everyone involved in that around track management. But yeah, it made the first turn very, very interesting. I think it's an important reminder. It's the same with Alba Larsen, that Ella Lloyd is a rookie. She won her first race last round, which was it was incredible, but it's an important reminder that she's still learning. Mistakes will be made. We can't heap all this pressure on brand new drivers and expect them to be flawless from the get-go. I don't really think that's fair to them. It was quite surprising to see, but mistakes are all part of the growing, learning process. So again, I do not fault her. It's just unfortunate that these things happen. But yeah, so she had started in P5, but that was her out of the race pretty quickly. I will also mention, in continuing Leah Block's sort of unlucky streak, she got away with it in qualifying, but that incident in turn 1 did affect her, and she dropped a couple of places down in the standings straight away, just trying to sort of avoid the sort of, it wasn't like a crash, but it was sort of like an incident. She tried to avoid that, and it did sort of affect her, which dropped her a few places down, which it was a bit unfortunate because it wasn't her fault at all. But otherwise, I think after turn 1, things sort of managed themselves out to be a bit normal. I mean, there was some more stuff that we'll get into, but after that, it was smooth under the yellow flag for a little while. Dorianne made up 4 places in turn 1. She definitely, took advantage of that little incident, and she pushed, I think it would have been P6 that she was in. She pushed from P6 to it was P3 or P2 straight away. It was pretty incredible. And that left Emma Felbermayr pretty vulnerable actually as well. So Not so great for her because Doriane didn't really have to fight that many people trying to get up to the front because that incident in turn 1 kind of pushed a lot of girls out of the way and left a pretty clean path for Doriane to sort of just like sail by. But I do want to say, just touching on that sort of improvement that Emma Felbermayr had between Jeddah and Miami. Doriane was up in P2 after the safety car. Doriane took the lead in about lap 3 from Emma, but Emma took it back in lap 4. And it was a really, really good battle between the two. She didn't concede. She defended really well. It was definitely a huge improvement from last round. And I don't know, I was just so excited for her because I was like, she is going toe-to-toe with one of the best in this series and she's not yielding. Doriane eventually did take it back somewhere in P5 and Emma had some mechanical issues. But I was just so impressed. I was like, she's really giving her a tough run. And taking the place back as well was quite surprising. Even on comms, they were going crazy because they were not expecting that at all. And Doriane is my personal favourite to win F1 Academy this year. She's not leading. She's behind Berg by 1 point. But she's my favourite to win. She did go on to win the race. Spoilers, sorry. But the battle between her and Emma gave it all she had and she was literally incredible. I was so impressed. I'm so excited to see her improve even further because if she can improve like that between the difference between one round in her first season out of karting, then just imagine what she can do by mid-season or the end of the season. The gain of improvement was just incredible. As I said, to go toe-to-toe with quite literally one of the best. And she's not just one of the best in F1 Academy. She, as I said in the last video, she has a whole list of accolades, of very, very impressive accolades. And for her to be genuinely fighting Emma for P1 and Emma not conceding, actually making it tough for her, it was just incredible. I was just so impressed. And I was also on the edge of my seat because I was like, will she do it? Will she do it? Oh my God, she did it. Oh my God, she's taking it back. Like, oh, it was a bit of a stressful one. And Miami was on, F1 Academy Miami was on within the range of like 3-4 a.m. I think quali was like 12 a.m. So it was a bit of a rough one. And I watched some of it back with a bit of a clearer mind. But I was like, oh my God. But it was an incredible battle for P1. I was so impressed during those couple of laps because it might sound like, oh, lap 3, lap 4, lap 5, that's not that much battling. But realistically, the race is 13 laps long. So for that to happen, I was on the edge of my seat, as always with F1 Academy, it seems. I was sitting there like, will she do it? Will she do it? She did it! Oh my God, she took it back! Yep. The whole thing, over and over again. So that was so impressive, and I was really rooting for Emma Felbermayr because, yeah, as a rookie, she's clearly incredible. She's shown such impressive gains, and I can't wait to see how she keeps improving as well. And just touching on her race, she ended up coming last, and there is some important caveats to that, I should say, which is that she had more than one mechanical issue. So she was running in, I want to say, in the realm of P2, P3, P4, when like the flap on the front of her car just like went up, and I don't know what it's covering, but it's part of the aerodynamics of the body of the car, I assume. But it came up, and the commentators mentioned that she was going to be losing a lot of time just because of that. So she went into the pits, and I should remind you that this is a 13-lap race. Most people do not pit. She went into the pits. They literally just slammed it back down. This is the Roden team, I believe Emma's a part of. But the mechanics just like slammed it back down, and she was able to drive off pretty quickly. But she's already lost so much time in the pits, right? So I was like, oh, come on. Like, this is so unlucky for her. Like, she has literally had quite an unlucky run for her to be fighting for P1 and to have that happen. And for it to be such a minor issue, given that they were able to fix it within about 10 seconds, that was really frustrating to see because I was really rooting for her to do really well. But then she was up there. She was fighting in about P12, which was like, it's not points, but it was really, really impressive because there was still 17 or 16 drivers left in the race. And for her to be pushing her way back to the points, I thought that was really incredible. Larson ended up in P11. That's how she finished the race from the pit lane, by the way. So pretty incredible. But for a while, it was a battle for P11 with her and Emma Felbermayr. They were going backwards and forwards between P11 and P12. But Emma's race ended up being sort of a masterclass in F1 rules. I actually learned quite a lot because I was seeing flags that I've never seen before. And I did have a little Google to learn some more things. So it taught me a lot, but which I'm sure it wasn't the purpose of it. Basically, she was shown a black and orange flag. I'll put up a picture because I don't even remember how it looks like, but it's basically a flag that means you need to go into the pits for a mechanical issue. And that was the flag she was shown for the flap on her car. I don't think they wanted her out there to continue out there. I think it was for the flap on the car, but it could have been for the further mechanical issue that she did have, which is why she ended up last in the race, which I'll get to now. So after Larson and her were battling, it was an incredible battle. I was writing my notes and I wasn't sure who I was going to write down as P11, but in the last couple laps, I want to say it was like the last 3 laps, Emma conceded about 5 positions. She went from a P12 to a possible P11, and she went down to like P15 or something, and they didn't show it on the screen, which I understand because Dorian was winning the race, so they're not showing someone who's dropping all the way down, but it was quite confusing, right? And then the co-coms, the guy who was speaking, who wasn't Abby Pulling, he was like, oh, she ended up last, like that sucks, blah blah blah, and that's just what he like said. He didn't take note of the fact that she dropped like 4 places in the last 2 laps or so, which I thought it was disappointing because he kind of attributed it to the flap issue and her just falling down the leaderboard, but not a further mechanical issue, which is what she did have. Emma put it up on her Instagram story that she had a further mechanical issue, which just completely ruined her race. So after facing literally all the trials and tribulations that someone could face in an F1 Academy race, she ended up suffering a mechanical issue, which put her last, which I believe last was P15. So that's where she ended up. She had a further mechanical issue that she clarified on her own Instagram story, but the commentator didn't even pick up on. And I figured, like, if you're not watching the leaderboard, which is understandable, like Dorian was about to win, but if you're not watching the leaderboard, then don't just say, oh, she just came last, like, oh, like the flap issue, blah, blah, blah. Like, it was no, she had a separate issue in the last couple laps of the race, which put her all the way at the end after conceding like 4 or 5 positions within the span of about 20 seconds. And if you don't know that, just like don't comment on it, I guess. Because, I don't know, I was watching and I was able to see her fall down the leaderboard and know that that was odd. Like, the flap issue, which didn't come up again, shouldn't have caused her to concede so many positions in that span of time. That was a bit annoying to hear because when he was talking, I was like, no, this is clearly something else. And then when she put it on her Instagram story, it cleared it up for me as to why that happened. But I thought, oh, come on, commentary, do a bit better. But I have no gripes about Abby Pulling. She was excellent on comms. I wish she'd do every F1 Academy race, but, you know, we can't always have nice things. So if we want to talk about some of the other battles, at one point there was a battle for P3 between Aurelia Nobles and Chloe Chambers. And on lap 10, there was a bit of a wheel-to-wheel battle for P3. Nobles eventually sort of conceded that position, but it was pretty tight there. And eventually, very quickly, actually, within about a lap, I should mention, she found herself in a battle for P4 with her teammate Maya Verg. Now, they're not teammates per se, but they're both in the Ferrari Drivers Academy, so that's kind of why I call them that. Aurelia is driving for Puma, though, I should mention. Puma are the merch supplier for Ferrari. I don't know if that's their official name or design brand or something, clothing brand, I don't know, but they do the gear for Ferrari. But yeah, they're both in the Ferrari Drivers Academy, so it was an FDA sort of battle. It was quite competitive, it was quite tight. Maya Verg eventually came out with P4, which pushed Aurelia a little bit down the leaderboard to be fighting with some other drivers, but it was just a really, really competitive showing between the two of them. It was really exciting to watch. Towards the other end of the grid, there was a bit of battling that was a bit dirtier, would you say? They were going like 3 across at one point, and it just was a mistake waiting to happen. Joanne Seconte and Chloe Chong both ended up DNFing. I'm not sure if they actually DNF'd at like the exact same time, but I do believe it was because of the incident between them. I was kind of under the impression that Joanne cut in front of Chloe a little bit, and that's what caused the incident, especially because they were more or less 3 across, but I don't think that's how it was seen by the race control, race stewarding people. And again, I'm just a fan, so what do I know? I know nothing, and I haven't watched the replay back super extensively. They did hand Chloe I believe it was a 3 grid place penalty for the next race, which didn't end up happening. Same with Ella Lloyd, actually, for her turn 1 incident, she was handed down a penalty. I think it was also 3 grid places for race 2. So Chloe had caused that issue in the double DNF with Joanne. And I just have to say, Chloe Chong very frequently seems to be at the scene of the crime, for lack of better wording, when it comes to like crashes. If it's not herself, she seems to always have inadvertently caused someone else's crash. I don't know, in the opening of F1 Academy in Shanghai, I think there were definitely a couple of DNFs that could be attributed to moves that she pulled out of the bag. And obviously they're all there to learn and improve. This is technically her second season, but she's had a year off. So I kind of don't know what to make of that. I hope she is on her way to improving, racing a little bit like more clean. But yes, it was... She does always seem to be there. It adds to the excitement, and it's all part of racing. Like, it shouldn't be seen as like she is causing, an issue. But it is funny to me that she always just does seem to be there or thereabouts with all of these DNFs and like yellow flags. But trust me when I say there are plenty of other people involved as well, like we saw in that turn 1 issue. So it's nothing against her, but she does always seem to be sort of nearby when these things happen. I should mention Leah Block, she sort of made it back up a little bit, and her and Aurelia were fighting for quite a while after Aurelia had sort of conceded a couple positions to those front runner girls who had made their way through the field. They were fighting for 5th place, and in the end neither of them got it because they were fighting each other so hard. Nina Gaterman actually sort of came through and secured P5. And Leah also got a 5-second penalty because she was pulling off some crazy moves trying to secure that P5 that were sort of a little bit across the line from what I can understand. I think she might have also sort of left the track and gained an advantage. So yeah, that resulted in her sort of falling out of the points actually because of that 5-second penalty. They all finished pretty close, and that didn't leave her with any room to stay within the top 8, which is the points given for the reverse grid race. Aurelia Nobles secured P6, and Leah Block ended up in P10 with that penalty. So a little bit unfortunate in my opinion, but the moves were getting a little bit more and more desperate. It seemed like she just kept really, really wanting to claim that place, and it started to get a little bit frustrated, and you could kind of tell in the moves they were pulling on each other. So really interesting to watch, definitely, for a viewer, for a fan such as myself. I can't imagine how it would have felt like to be in that car and just be battling it out that aggressively. But, more power to them. It's quite incredible. I definitely couldn't do it. I guess the last thing to mention is that Dorian did win the race. The reverse grid doesn't give you a whole heap of points just because it is the reverse grid. But yeah, Dorian did win the race after that really good battling with Emma. I was quite impressed. They cut off the podium celebrations in the watchback, so I couldn't see them. I was really annoyed. I was looking forward to this. Hello, I want to see her lift the trophy. Like, why have you cut this off? Anyway, but we did see her win. It was really, really cool. She did a great job, especially taking advantage in turn 1 in lap 1. Like, that was really... I felt like that was the hallmark of a good racer, taking advantage of those opportunities that get put in front of you when they happen in a split second, it seems. But yeah, so really, really cool to see her win. I was trying to watch back some podium stuff on the socials, and I did get to see her lift the trophy, so that was really nice. But yeah, overall, a pretty impressive running from her, and very impressive from Alicia and Chloe Chambers, who rounded out the rest of the podium. Alicia was in P2, Chloe Chambers in P3, and they're obviously teammates. And honestly, Campos are just soaring, aren't they? Like, whoa, they're just doing so well. Good car, even better drivers. What can you say? But it's so clear to me that Alicia Palmovsky just has something going on there. That's a true racer, and a very good one at that. Yeah, can't wait to see more from her. She's very cleanly leading the rookie championship. As I say, she's leading the rookie championship. She is also in the regular championship conversation. She's been so consistent and so good, and I've been so impressed as a fan, and I'm like, how is this girl she has an incredible resume, as I shared in the last video, but she has effectively just rocked up to this feeder series and just been incredible, won the first race of the whole year. So like, I think her ceiling also is probably non-existent. Like, she doesn't have a ceiling, and yeah, she's only gonna improve and get even better and get so much opportunity out of being so visible in a series such as F1 Academy, and I'm so excited for her. She's incredible, incredibly competitive, and incredibly talented in that car. So I guess there's not too much to talk about when it comes to race 2, but I did just want to touch on it. It was pouring rain, so that was a bit crazy. I do want to show some photos from what I could see on YouTube when I was watching it. Basically, from some of the camera angles, you couldn't see the car until it was almost just passing the camera. That's how thick the rain seemed to be. And I commend the girls for going out for about 20 minutes in a formation laps, just getting that pouring rain experience, I guess. But it was like dramatic weather. It was very, very heavy rain, and I was very confused as to why they were still out there. And Abby Pulling kind of was commenting on that as well. She was like, I can't believe this hasn't been called off yet. And she was eventually correct. They did call it off after nearly 25 minutes, I want to say. They sat in the pits for a little bit before they said the race will not restart. And that was a bit of a shame, because it was all clear blue skies for the F1 Drivers Parade where they went around in Lego. But you know what? I understand what the main event is. So race 2 of F1 Academy was officially postponed. So, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing it happen somewhere else if it does happen. And I do understand this is just the way of the world. And it would happen to any other feeder series. I don't, you know, expect the women to get special treatment, but it is a bit frustrating to not see them go ahead with that race. Back to the weather conditions. I was so impressed that they were going and doing these formation laps. There were a couple of sort of touch and go moments, but I honestly cannot fault anyone who had issues with that, because the conditions were, I don't even know how to describe them. Like, I can't imagine sitting in that car. From the cameras, from the viewer's perspective, we couldn't even see the cars really that much at all. Like, you couldn't see the safety car and it was like, oh, it's right there. Like, I can't imagine what it would have felt like to drive in that. It would have felt so dangerous. And I know they're racers, they wouldn't necessarily care that much. Like, I think their threshold for danger is very much higher than mine, is what I'm trying to say. But it was incredible that there weren't any sort of key crashes or issues that went on in those formation laps, because they went on and on and on. For 20-25 minutes, they were just lapping in the pouring rain. It was incredible that nothing really happened and they all made it out safely. And I don't know if people in Miami, maybe it wasn't that bad as it was showing up on camera, and maybe I'm overreacting here. But dear God, from what we could see, it was very, very crazy weather conditions. They did well. It was getting to the point, because the water was staying on the track and it was coming down so heavy. The cars were becoming boats a little bit. Like, they were just, the aquaplaning was becoming a serious issue. And I felt like it was going to become a very serious issue if they continued. So I guess there's just one funny thing I wanted to mention from the end of race 2 is it got cancelled, and then the drivers were being told to, you know, get out of the car, and the race was called off. Members of her team came up to her and told her, this is Joanne Ciconte that I'm talking about, and she got out of the car, she's going, what's going on? And I thought she might be racing for the Australian flag, but there is some Italian spirit in there, because there was, what's going on? I thought that was just a little bit funny. She was asking, I think, why the race was getting cancelled or something along those lines. I'm sure it would be super frustrating for those girls to have the race cancelled, and then they've sort of got still, you know, 2-3 more hours before the F1 race, and there was probably definitely a window in there in which they could have raced. But I get it, these things run on, you know, a tight schedule, and they're a feeder series, and, you know, it's the same with F2 and F3. They're always the ones to get axed first to make way for the main event. So I understand that, but I'm sure it's frustrating. But I'm hoping with the language they used of postpone, not cancel, that we see this race made up somewhere else. I think that would be really cool. So the team standings didn't change just because we only had that reverse grid race and they hand out less points for that. In terms of substantial changes of the Drivers' Championship, that didn't really change either. Doriane has definitely closed the gap between her and Maya Verg, but it's only 1 point now, so that gap is very, very small. It's a very thin margin that Maya Verg has to walk, but it's still unchanged. It's still Doriane in P2 and Maya Verg leading the championship. And lower down, I don't recall there being any substantial changes. I think I'll put it on the screen so that I can correct myself, or I can just show where everyone's at. So we don't need to discuss that too deeply. But yeah, before I go, I definitely want to do a separate video all on the F1 Academy screening. I think that was a really cool event to have that attached to the weekend. It was really good to see so many drivers there, but I think I'll talk about that a little bit later, because so much F1 Academy non-racing stuff happened this weekend, but then also so much women in motorsport happened this weekend. So there's so much stuff apart from the Academy races that we can talk about. So I do want to kind of get into that, because so many girls were killing it off the track. I want to just throw up some of the pictures of the magazine covers I think I probably did that earlier in the video, but you deserve a reminder because, and you being anyone watching, you deserve a reminder that these girls are killing it. They're going places, they're getting their names out there, getting their brand out there. They're doing the most. They're working twice as hard, and it's so impressive. They deserve all the love, all the kudos. So I'm giving that to them now, just in my little way. But I'll have you know, my last video got 15 views, so don't knock it. I've got the message out there. So just one last thing I wanted to touch on is that I saw this video on Instagram on the Reels. I'm a chronic reel scroller. And it was a group of girls that were sitting outside the gates of Miami waiting to be let in, whilst the F1 Academy girls were in free practice on the track. And the gates didn't open in time before F1 Academy had started. And so those girls were, the caption of, I'll put a little screenshot of the video I took. They had the caption up there. That was basically they weren't allowed in to watch the girls in free practice. And I thought that was a bit disappointing. It was a bit of an oversight from the race organizers, if that is indeed what happened. And, you know, I'm sure those girls, like, they want to see racing, they want to support women, and it sucks that they couldn't see that, and it sucks that the F1 Academy girls couldn't get people in the stands cheering for them that wanted to be there, that wanted to give them support and viewership and respect. So I thought that was a little bit disappointing, a bit of an oversight from the race weekend organizers, from Miami organizers. I hope they can kind of improve on that a little bit more, either push the free practice back or open the gates earlier, whatever is necessary. Because, I mean, if people want to get in, they want to watch, but they can't. And that's a real issue, because women in motorsports is growing. And how are they going to get seen if they literally can't get into the racetrack? I think some improvements there, just from my perspective, are letting people in. I think that's a no-brainer. But also show it on YouTube. I want to see free practice. Like, let me watch. Let me watch the girls race. Shh, the girls are racing. I want to watch. Like, gosh. Anyway, the name of this review show is just like supposed to be a play on like the girls are fighting, but it's the girls are racing. I don't know. I thought that was funny, and it's my show, so I can do whatever I want. Anyway, I think that'll be it for now. I hope you enjoyed this pretty short race review. Short as in not much to cover in race 2, which is the typical title race, because it hands out full racing points. Not a whole lot to cover in this video, but I hope that you still enjoyed, that you got something out of it. Follow along if you want to. Support women in motorsports. I'll see you at the next round, and maybe in some other videos if I do any sort of informational videos as I continue to learn a little bit more about women in motorsport. I hope I can take everyone along on that journey with me. But for now, I will see you later, and be praying that when I turn this video off, the microphone did indeed work.